Well, it's everybody's favorite time of year. It, of course, is bowl season. And, dude, there's just too many of these games. Like, I like watching college football. But, dude, like, what the hell is the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl? What is the Myrtle Beach Bowl? We got, Frisco's got 2 bowl games this year. We've got the Quick Lane Bowl. There's just too many. The Fenway Park's got their own bowl game now. You gotta be kidding me. There's 44 bowl games? You win 6 games, you're in a bowl game. That's all cool, but dude, there's so many of these things. So in today's video, we're gonna talk about every single one of them. It might be a little bit short on each bowl game, especially for the First Responder Bowl, but bowls like that. I'm just gonna give a quick prediction and move on. I'll talk a little bit about each bowl game, maybe give you the odds and all of that. So buckle up, there's a lot of bowl games. We'll get through all of them here on the channel. And if you want more, just talking about sports from the channel, make sure that subscribe button down below. If you are new to the channel, we're doing a Tennessee Volunteers Dynasty mode. Also playing some with the New York Giants on Madden 22. But now, let's predict every single bowl game. So our first bowl game is the Bahamas Bowl. And this video, I don't know when it's going out. It might go out as soon as the Bahamas Bowl is starting. So it might go out after. I don't know. But we've got Middle Tennessee and Toledo. Middle Tennessee's got a very good defense. Their offense isn't all that great. Toledo's got a pretty good offense. Toledo's 7-5. They're from the MAC. Middle Tennessee, of course, from the CUSA. They are 6-6 for Toledo, currently on a 3-game winning streak, 2 wins, or actually 3 straight wins against other Ohio schools. They went on the road. They won at Bowling Green, won at Ohio, and then beat Akron for their last game. Coming into this one, Toledo is going to be a 10.5-point favorite. I think Toledo's going to win this game. Their offense is just better. Middle Tennessee, they don't really run the ball that much. They're throwing offense, but their offense just hasn't been great all season. I think their highest points scored was 44, and it was against UConn. Other than that, they scored 50 against FIU, but still, they're not very good. They lost to Old Dominion a couple weeks ago. I think Toledo's the better team. I'll go Toledo. They're probably going to cover too. Yeah, give me the Rockets to win the first bowl game. All right, now we've got a fun game here in which will be the Tail Greeter Cure Bowl. Okay, we've got the MAC champs here in Northern Illinois. They went 9-4 in the regular season. They're coming off that big win over Kent State, 41-23 in the MAC championship, and they're taking on a team that was in the top 25 earlier in the season, looking pretty good to be the favorites for the Sun Belt. We're talking about, of course, the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. They dropped that game at App State, and then they lost at home 42-40 against Georgia State. And here they are in the Cure Bowl, a team that, hey, if Cincinnati lost the game earlier in the season, you were looking like, okay, Coastal Carolina is probably going to end up in a New Year's Six Bowl. Unfortunately for them, though, that's not going to happen. They still have star quarterback, though, of course, Grayson McCall leading the charge. They've got their tight end as well, and Isaiah Likely. For Northern Illinois, a very high-scoring offense, too. They can run the ball, they can throw the ball, they can do all of it. Should be a high-scoring game, as most Coastal Carolina games are. Same can be said, by Northern Illinois. Of course, they had that game, though, 2 weeks ago before they lost to Kent State, or before they beat Kent State in the MAC championship. They lost to Western Michigan, who's surprisingly a good team. Who they beat earlier this season. Western Michigan beat them 42-21. I was looking for Pittsburgh. Yeah, so West Michigan beat Pittsburgh earlier this year, and then West Michigan ended up with a win over Northern Illinois later in the season. We'll talk about West Michigan when we get to their bowl game as well, but Northern Illinois, Coastal Carolina. I think Coastal Carolina's better offense. I think their defense should be able to hold up in this game as well. You're going to see a high-scoring affair, but I like the Chanticleers to win this bowl game. I think they're going to take home the Cure Bowl championship. So one of the better Group of 5 matchups you're going to get right now, it's going to be Western Kentucky taking on App State. And, of course, the story for Western Kentucky, they lost, of course, in the CUSA championship to Texas San Antonio, 49-41. But they still got Bailey Zapp, who may be one of the best quarterbacks right now in college football. This man had a stellar season for the Hilltoppers. Western Kentucky comes in this game with a record of 8-5, and for App State, of course, they're coming off their game in, of course, the Sun Belt Championship, where they had to go on the road. They lost to Louisiana Lafayette. The Raging Cajuns beat them 24-16, but before that game, App State was on a huge winning streak, and that winning streak all started with the win over the Chanticleers. App State, of course, got their star running back here, Nate Noel. They've got Chase Bryce as well as their quarterback. Again, 2 very good offenses in this one. Western Kentucky puts up a lot of points. They do not run the football. They throw the football the entire game. This was a team that was 1-5 at one point in the season. They won out, and they got to the UTSA game. 1-4, excuse me. They lost to Army, Indiana, MSU, and then UTSA, and then they ran the table from there. This Western Kentucky team's good. They throw the football a lot. Same can be said about App State, but they'll throw on the run a lot more than they'll pass the ball, or more than compared to Western Kentucky. But honestly, in this game, give me the Hilltoppers. It's going to be our first upset pick of the game, or of the bowl season. They're +3 in this one, looking at +120 money on the line as well. For Coastal Carolina, the game we just picked, they were, of course, 10.5 point favorites over Northern Illinois. Yeah, I like the underdogs here and I like the upset out of Western Kentucky. Their air raid offense, that offense that throws the football the entire game. I like Bailey Zappi and the Hilltoppers to pick up the win here in the Boca Raton Bowl. Actually, let me get the official name. It is, of course, the roofclaim.com Boca Raton Bowl. Yeah, give me the Hilltoppers, though. All right, how is this a thing? It's the PUBG Mobile. Yeah, get this. PUBG Mobile New Mexico Bowl. We've got Texas El Paso taking on Fresno State. And the big storyline around this one is Jake Haener playing this one? Because he entered the transfer portal and then he went out of it. And he's then eligible to play the bowl game, but I don't know if he's playing this weekend. I believe the backup's Jalen Henderson, if I'm not mistaken. He's a freshman, but Jake Haener is a beast. The thing is, if he plays this game, I think Fresno State wins no matter what. If he doesn't, I think this one's closer than, potentially would be with Haener, because Jake Haener, I think, is one of the best quarterbacks in college football. That guy's got guts. Fresno State had that close game against Oregon, and Jake Haener led them in that game. The game that they went on the road, they beat UCLA. That was all Jake Haener willing his team to victory, beating the number 13 team in the nation at 40-37. Fresno State has had some hiccups, though, throughout the course of the season. They went on the road to Hawaii. They lost. I think they were ranked like number 18. It was one of those weird Hawaii games, though. The games that start on 11 o'clock on the East Coast, or even later, like 11:30 on the East Coast. It's just a tough game for Fresno State to play. They also lost. They got blown out later in the season by Boise State 40-14, but they're taking on a Texas El Paso team that's 7-5. They started the season really well, but then they dropped, 4 of their last 5 games. Not good. They lost to FAU 28-25, UTSA 44-23, North Texas 20-17. They beat Rice 38-28, and they lost to Alabama and Birmingham 42-25. They got their way into a bowl game by winning early in the season. But man, this UTEP team, man, I just don't think they're as good as Fresno State. Fresno State's still a solid team. They finished the season pretty well. UTEP's one of those squads, I think it was like Colorado one year. I know they didn't make a bowl game, but they started the season 5-0 and they dropped their last 7. And this is kind of like if Colorado actually made a bowl game that season. UTEP's not very good at this point of the year. They've dropped so many games. This is going to be all Fresno State. If Jake Haener plays, this is like the lock of the bowl season. If he doesn't, could get tricky, but I still think Fresno State is going to beat UTEP. You're looking at the odds for this one. You've got Fresno coming out of minus 450 on the money line, plus 350 for UTEP. Fresno State 11.5 point favorites. I think they'll probably hit the over on that too. I think they're going to cover. Give me all Fresno State in this one. The Bulldogs are going to win. So next up, we have got, this is going to be the Radiance Technologies Independence Bowl. It's Alabama Birmingham taking on BYU, and BYU, this team's good. This team is very good. If it wasn't for that 2-week, bad period they had in the season where they lost at Boise, or at home against Boise, and they went to Baylor and lost, BYU would be in the playoffs right now. I really think if they beat Boise, and if they beat Baylor, they would be in right now, because Baylor ended up winning, of course, the Big 12. But BYU, they were just the Pac-12 killers this year. They beat Arizona, and given Arizona's not very good, but they beat Utah, who was ranked number 21 at the time. They beat ASU, who was 19 at the time. They beat Washington State, and they beat USC. And oh, by the way, they also beat Virginia 66-49. This is a team that puts a lot of points on the board. Jaron Hall did a very good job in his first season starting for this BYU team, of course, filling in for Zach Wilson, who unfortunately got drafted by the New York Jets. Let's say some prayers for Zach Wilson's NFL career. But they're taking on UAB, a UAB school again who cut their program a couple years ago. They're back now. Dylan Hopkins leading the charge for the Blazers. UAB coming to this one with a record of 8-4 for BYU, coming back at 10-2 for UAB. Finished out the season with that win over UTEP. They had that close game where they lost at Texas San Antonio, and they had the game earlier in the season too where they lost to Georgia, but no shame in that. BYU 7-point favorites in this one. For UAB, of course, +7 on the opposite line. I think BYU wins this game. I think this line should be a little bit higher too. I think BYU is going to blow them out. I wouldn't say blow them out, but I think this one's not going to be as close as the line reflects. I think BYU is going to go in there. They're going to run straight through UAB. Is there any for BYU, this is a team that finished the season ranked number 13. Are you all that excited to play in the Independence Bowl? Not really. For UAB, you get to take on a ranked opponent, and if you win this game, you will end the season in the rankings. Still, though, I like Brigham Young to win this game. I think BYU is going to go in there. They're going to win it. I think they'll cover too. Give me the Cougars. Okay, so this is a bigger game than just the Lending Tree Bowl will say. It's Liberty, the 7-5 Liberty Flames, taking on the 7-5 Eastern Michigan Eagles. And no offense to Eastern Michigan, but the story of this game will be on Liberty. And it's going to be the first time for a lot of people where they're going to see Malik Willis play, a guy who's projected right now to be in the first round of the NFL draft, who, it's probably going to be Kenny Pickett one, but Malik Willis right now in that range where he might be the second quarterback coming off the board. Just depends, but still, Liberty started the year really well. They started 7-2, and they dropped their last 3 games against Ole Miss. They lost lost to the Raging Cajuns, and they lost to Army as well. But Malik Willis started the season pretty well. He had that tough outing against Army at the end of the year. But you're going to see Malik Willis play an Eastern Michigan team who, they're all right. They dropped their last game to Central Michigan 31-10. They barely beat Western Michigan 22-21. Then that game against Ohio, they lost. They beat Toledo and Bowling Green in 2 games where the Bowling Green game, they scored 55 points. In the Toledo game, they scored 52. So an Eastern Michigan team that will put points on the board. But again, you're going to see Malik Willis. He's a dual threat quarterback. He can run, he can throw. You're going to see he was their leading rusher on Liberty this season. He had 11 touchdowns on the ground, 24 through the air. I think Liberty will win. I think they are, they're minus 7.5 point favorites, minus 9.5 point favorites, now on the new line. I think Liberty's going to win. I think you're going to see a lot of Malik Willis in this game. And again, it's a bigger game than just the Lending Tree Bowl will say, because a lot of people for the first time are going to see Malik Willis, a relatively unknown quarterback to the casuals perspective. Kind of like what Carson Wentz a couple years ago when he was at North Dakota State. Not everyone knew who he was, but if you knew how good Carson Wentz was in college, and you know how good Malik Willis is in college right now. It's a big game for Liberty. They're trying to go out with a win here with Malik Willis. I think Willis will carry them to his victory. I'm going to go with the Liberty Flames to beat East Michigan. Now we've got a matchup here between the Mountain West and the Pac-12 here in the Jimmy Kimmel Los Angeles Bowl. It, of course, is the Aggies versus the Beavers here, Utah State versus Oregon State. For Oregon State, up and down season for them. They started the year losing at Purdue, but they got things together and they beat USC, beat Washington back-to-back weeks, then dropped the game to Washington State, but then they beat Utah, which was weird. And they finished the season losing to Oregon State. They're taking on Utah State, who's playing their best football right now. I didn't think they were going to beat San Diego State, just didn't think they were going to after they got blown up by Wyoming just 2 weeks previous. But other than that Wyoming game, this team's looked very good ever since they lost to BYU 34-20. Their quarterback, of course, Logan Bonner, having a very good season, 36 passing touchdowns for him. Their star receiver, of course, and Devin Tompkins as well. For Oregon State, we're going to see if they're going to be able to run the football with, of course, BJ Baylor. If they can run the football against Utah State, big advantage towards them. But surprising to me that Oregon State's a minus 7.5 point favorite in this one. I really like Utah State, and I'm going to go with the upset here. I think Utah State's going to beat Oregon State. Oregon State, again, just a very up and down team. You don't know what team you're going to get. You can get the team that, beats USC and beats Washington. The team that beat USC, they went on the road and blew out the Trojans. But then you get the team that, loses to Colorado, and I get it. Oregon State's always in close games, and this game will probably be close as well. You look at the Purdue loss, they lose by 9. They beat USC. That game as well. They beat Washington by 3. They lose to Washington State by 7. They beat Utah by 8. They lose to Cal by 14, which is weird. They lose to Colorado by 3. They blow out Stanford, beat Arizona State by 14, and then lose to Oregon by 9. Oregon State's always in close games, but in this one, I think they're going to lose yet another close one. I think Utah State is the better all-around football team here. I think they're going to be able to work the football downfield with their passing attack and give me the Utah State Aggies to beat the Beavs. Now we are at the R&L Carriers Bowl here, or actually it's the R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl. We've got Louisiana taking on Marshall, and the story of this game, of course, is going to be the defense out of the Raging Cajuns. They play tremendous defense. They've done it all season long, holding App State and UL Monroe to 16 points in back-to-back weeks, and they held Malik Willis to only 14 points at their game against Liberty on the road. They held Troy to 21, Georgia State to 17. They didn't allow Texas State to score a point, and then App State the first time around only scored 13. Louisiana's got a tremendous defense. Their offense doesn't score the most points. I mean, we'll be straight up. Their offense doesn't really score all that much, but their defense is enough to the point where their offense can take advantage and win football games. For Marshall, you're going to see if this offense can get going against one of the better defenses in the group of 5. Grant Wells, their quarterback, and they're running attack with Rashawn Ali as well. Marshall's a good team, but again, everyone's a good team until they run into that Raging Cajuns defense. The Raging Cajuns team that only lost their first game of the year, where they lost to Texas 38-18 on the road, but that was at the time where Texas, like every season, is ranked pretty well going into the season. Texas was 21 at the time, but other than that, man, the number 23 team in the country in Louisiana has looked very good. Again, their offense doesn't do much. Levi Lewis, their starting quarterback, Chris Smith, their star running back as well. But yeah, give me Louisiana, man. I think this defense is just too good for Marshall. I think they're going to hold them probably, I think they're going to hold them probably under 20. And again, I know how good Marshall is. I know how good their offense is. They scored 48 on, they scored 49 against Charlotte, but still. They lost to WKU their last game, 53-21, and if Western Kentucky can stop your offense, I think Louisiana is going to do the exact same. So give me Louisiana. Probably should be a close game, though, because the Raging Cajuns' offense isn't the greatest, but still, give me Louisiana to get the win. So now we've got the Myrtle Beach Bowl. It's going to be Old Dominion and Tulsa. This is such a weird game. It's the Myrtle Beach Bowl, presented by Tax Act. It's on the 20th of December. It's a weird game because Old Dominion's a team that started the season horribly. I mean, they were 1-6, and they won 5 straight games to close out the year. They beat Louisiana Tech, they beat FIU, they beat FAU, they beat Middle Tennessee, and they beat Charlotte to become bowl eligible. And they're taking on a Tulsa team, which just is weird, because Tulsa sometimes plays very good football, and sometimes they play very bad football, but look at their wins and look at their losses. They have wins over some solid teams, primarily looking at SMU, but their losses are to a lot of good teams where they have close games and competitive games with some of the best teams in the country. And UC Davis. Yeah, they lost to UC Davis in week 1. I don't understand it. UC Davis isn't a bad FCS program, don't get me wrong, but the UC Davis Aggies beat them 19-17 in the first week of the season. So what does Tulsa do after that? Oh, they only have a 5-point game against Oklahoma State, and they had a competitive game, somewhat competitive for the first half against Ohio State. They gave Ohio State a run for their money. It was a closer game than it should have been. And they beat Arkansas State. They get blown out by Houston. They have some close games with some other teams. And they have that game against Cincinnati where if they don't, stall out at the goal line at the end of the game, Tulsa's in that game with the team that's going to be in the playoffs this season in the Bearcats. They win 3 straight games, though, to end up bowl eligible, beating Tulane, beating Temple, and beating SMU 34-31, of course, to get this opportunity. Old Dominion's weird. Again, they started 1-6. Now they're 6-6. So 2 hot teams coming into this game. But again, you just don't know what you're going to get out of Old Dominion. I mean, Tulsa's a -9.5 point favorite in this one. Old Dominion plus 9.5 coming back on the other side. Old Dominion runs the football very well. Tulsa can do it all as well. I think we see a close game here. I don't think, I'm going to say Tulsa's going to win this one. I don't think they cover, though. I think you see a very close game, probably decided by a field goal. So I'm saying Old Dominion is going to cover, but they're going to lose. So we're going the Tulsa Golden Hurricane to beat Old Dominion in this one, winning the Myrtle Beach Bowl. So Wyoming's back here in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl for like the millionth straight year. Wyoming, say what you want about them. Are they the worst bowl eligible team? Like, they're not very good, but they have that win over Northern Illinois. So like, are they good? Are they not? I don't know. Wyoming's a tough team to read. And Kent State, a team that lost to NIU last week in the MAC championship. They beat them the first time around 52-47. Kent State's weird as well. This is a team that throws the football a lot. They run the football a lot. That offense from Kent State is very talented. They're always going to put points up on the board. Wyoming, it's weird. Sometimes their offense just gets stuck. Like you see the Air Force game, they only score 14. They only score 19 against Montana State. They score 14 against New Mexico. 3 against New Mexico. They scored 21 against San Jose State, who's not very good. Boise State, they only scored 13. And Hawaii, in their last game, they only scored 14 points. The Cowboys, just a tough team to read. Yeah, I think Kent State's going to win this game. I don't got much to tell you about Wyoming, honestly. They've had 2 quarterbacks this season. They've had Sean Chambers and Levi Williams. For Kent State, again, they have Marquez Cooper. They're running back 11 touchdowns in the season, over 1,000 yards rushing as well. And I know they dropped the NIU game, but I don't think Wyoming's good enough to beat Kent State. And again, Wyoming's back in this damn bowl game for the millionth time in a row. And Kent State is going to be the underdogs in this one. They're plus 125 and they're plus 3 on the line. But yeah, Kent State's going to win this game. They're going to cover, obviously, if they're going to win. I'm going with the Golden Flashes to beat Wyoming. I think they'll get it done and win the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. Tremendous game here in the Tropical Smoothie Cafe Frisco Bowl. You got the winners of the CUSA here in Texas San Antonio taking on the runners-up in the Mountain West. Of course, we're talking about the UTSA Roadrunners and the San Diego State Aztecs. Should be an exciting game here. And for UTSA, they had that one loss to Northern Texas, which really hurt. But because they would have been a ranked team coming into this game, they were going to be undefeated, 13-0. Of course, they came back. They rebounded against Western Kentucky. And again, they gave up 41 points. But their offense, of course, UTSA is so explosive. They're always going to put points on the board. And they won that game by 8, 49-41. For San Diego State, I thought they were going to beat them out. I thought they were going to win the Mountain West, and I thought they were going to beat the Utah State Aggies. That game did not go their way, losing 46-13. But San Diego State, you dismiss that game and you dismiss the Fresno State game. This is a solid team who has a win over Utah. They've got wins on the road against Air Force, Hawaii, and UNLV, and they also beat Nevada and Boise State at home. They're number 24 in the rankings right now. But man, I mean, UTSA is a very good football team. Of course, the quarterback, Frank Harris, at the charge for the Roadrunners. I'm going to take the CUSA champs here over the runners-up in the Mountain West. I think UTSA is the better football team. I think what they can do on offense is a lot more than what San Diego State can do. I just don't know if San Diego State's going to be able to keep up with UTSA because, again, with the exception of the Northern Texas game, all UTSA's games basically are shootouts, and they just keep scoring until they can get the win. I don't think San Diego State can outpace them on offense, and I'm going to go with the UTSA Roadrunners to pick up the win. I think they will win the Tropical Smoothie Frisco Bowl. And yeah, we're giving it to the Roadrunners. This game's just weird because it's Missouri and Army. Army just lost to Navy, and I don't know what to make out of the SEC, because all these teams, other than Georgia and Alabama, we know those two teams are good. Other than that, and maybe Ole Miss you can put in that group as well, but other than those three, who's good in the SEC? Because they're all going to be in bowl games, except for Vanderbilt, because Vanderbilt shouldn't exist at football. But like, they're all decent. And they're all going to bowl games. Missouri is the first one. They're going to be the first test for the SEC. And it's a game against Army. Again, teams don't like to schedule Army non-conference, and it's tough if you run against them in a bowl game, because you know what Army does. The triple option the entire game. They're not going to throw the football. They're a running offense. And Missouri, they're all right. I mean, they gave up 34 against Arkansas. They had that win to make them bowl eligible where they beat Florida and South Carolina in back-to-back weeks. They had a struggle on the road against Vanderbilt, which Vanderbilt's not very good at football, but Missouri ended up getting the win. I don't know, man. This is just a weird game. I mean, you got Connor Bazelak's their quarterback. He had an okay season. Tyler Beatty, obviously, is their best player. Ran for over 1,600 yards this year. Beatty's a monster. He had 14 touchdowns on the ground this season. If Missouri's going to win this game, it's going to be through him. Army, of course, you know their run game's really good. I believe their leading rusher is Tyrell Robinson. Christian Anderson can also take off as well, and he can also somewhat throw the football if they need him to. Yeah, it's going to be a running game. It's going to be a quick game because both these teams are going to run the football a lot. Missouri's 6-6. Army's 8-4. You look at the lines for this game. Missouri's coming in at plus 145. They're 3.5-point underdogs. For Army, minus 175, and then of course 3.5 point favorites, excuse me. Surprising, really is, considering Army's last game against Navy. And I know if you dismiss that game, okay, they beat UMass, they beat Liberty, they beat Air Force, lost to Wake Forest, where they still scored 56 points, but they lost. They lost to Wisconsin in a close game. They beat Miami of Ohio. They beat UConn. They beat Western Kentucky, who I think very highly of. But still, I think there's a difference here with Army and the SEC schools. We don't know though, because again, all these SEC schools can go in there, can go into the bowl games and just run the table, because you just don't know which one of them are good, because they all went 6-6 basically, and they all barely just became bowl eligible. But in this specific game, I think Missouri is going to be able to outrun Army, which is tough to say usually, but I'm going with the Tigers to beat Army, and I think they are going to win the Armed Forces Bowl. All right, so our next bowl game is, Frisco got 2 bowl games. What are we doing? It's the Frisco Football Classic. All right, North Texas and Miami of Ohio. Of course, Miami of Ohio led by Blaine Gabbert's brother and Brett Gabbert. Jack Sorensen's a very good receiver too. Those two connected for 10 touchdowns this season. North Texas, the Mean Green, started the year 1-6. They won their first game against an FCS school called Northwestern State. They beat the Demons 44-14. Northwestern State, though, low-key, really nice logo. That's kind of cool. But they lose 6 straight games. And they win their last 5. They beat Rice, they beat Southern Miss, they beat UTEP, they beat FIU, and they have that last game. It's at home against Texas San Antonio. It's number 15 UTSA's run for their perfect season. If they can beat the Mean Green, they're going undefeated. They're going to be 12-0 going into the USA Championship. Well, nope. The Mean Green came in that game. They were mean to Texas San Antonio, and they won that one 45-23. DeAndre Torrey is a very good running back, 13 touchdowns this season for him. They're taking on a Miami of Ohio team that's just been up and down all year. They started the season losing to Cincinnati and losing to Tanner Morgan and the Golden Gophers over there at Minnesota. They lost to Army. They lost to East Michigan in a 13-12 game. They have their wins sprinkled in there, of course, too. They won 6 games, obviously, to become bowl eligible. They got that win over Central Michigan, Akron, Ball State, Buffalo, Bowling Green, just not good teams. I mean, Akron won 2 games this year. Buffalo won 4. Bowling Green won 4. Central Michigan was solid. They won 8 games this year. But other than that, other than Central Michigan, they only have, or Ball State won 6 games too. But Central Michigan and Ball State are their only 2 wins against teams that are bowl eligible. Yikes, yeah, give me North Texas all day. This team's on fire right now. They've won 5 straight games over very good programs. Give me the Mean Green to win this one. I think the run attack, of course, led by Torrey is going to be enough. We're going with the Mean Green to win the Frisco Football Classic. So unfortunately, this is no longer the Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl. It's now the Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl. Not as cool, but we've got a very good game against 2 Florida teams. It's the Central Florida Golden Knights, or Knights, excuse me. I'm thinking hockey for some reason, but it's the Knights taking on the Florida Gators. Here we go, man. UCF gets their shot right now against Florida. Florida's a 6.5-point favorite in this one. But man, I feel like the biggest story around this game is going to be Dylan Gabriel transferring to UCLA, even though he's not the starting quarterback. It is Mikey Keene. He took over about halfway through the season for UCF. In his last game against USF, though, UCF won that one 17-13 in their rivalry game. Again, Keene didn't do much in that game. Like, you know, most games, Mikey Keene doesn't do all that much, but still, UCF does enough to win games. I mean, it just depends on the game. Again, the USF game didn't score many points. UConn, everyone's going to score points. They had a close game against Tulane, which they barely won, but they only put up 14 points. The ECU game, they only put up 20. I don't know, UCF's a tough team to read. I know they had the beginning of the year win over Boise State, which looking back at it is still pretty big. 36-31 victory over Boise. We look at Florida here. Again, I said it earlier about the SEC. I just don't know what to make out of some of these teams. This is a team in Florida who went into halftime tied with Samford, excuse me. Not Stanford, Samford. Florida's so weird. And Emory Jones in that game still had 464 passing yards. But I just don't know what to make out of the Florida Gators. Because, yeah, Emory Jones is all right. I mean, sometimes his own fans in the stands or, school will boom off the field. But when you look at it, Emory Jones kind of carries his team on offense. He runs the ball the most for him. He throws it, obviously. I don't know, but again, Florida's not very good. Their non-conference this year was USF, FAU, and Samford, and they barely won some of those games. I know they blew out USF and FAU kind of towards the end, but at the beginning of those games were closer than you wanted them to be. Taking on Central Florida, this game's a toss-up. Yeah, it's a good game because it could really go either way. Ever so slightly, though, I'm going with the Florida Gators. Yeah, we're picking SEC schools twice in a row here. I just don't think Central Florida is good enough to keep up with Florida because, say what you want about it, Florida's offense is shaky at times. When they get going, they can keep scoring. Their defense sometimes just can't stop a Pee-wee football team. Just depends on how it's going to go. I think, though, barely, the Florida Gators are going to win. I think they'll cover 6.5. That'll be tough, but we're going with the Florida Gators to pick up the win. So Hawaii's back playing at home here. It is the Hawaii Bowl. It is the Easy Post Hawaii Bowl, of course. It is the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors taking on the Memphis Tigers. For Memphis, they became bowl eligible with their last game of the season, beating Tulane at 33-28. For Hawaii, they have a losing record. They're 6-7. They play the extra game, though, at the beginning of the season, usually against Pac-12 team. It was UCLA this year. And yeah, I mean, they're bowl eligible. Their wins aren't great, even though they got the win over Fresno State. And it's always weird every single year, though, because Hawaii, they play so well at home most years. Most years they play well at home. Because, of course, the road team's got to go all the way down to Hawaii to play a football game. Now, though, I mean, Memphis, again, taking on Hawaii. We'll see. Same things is involved in this one. And Memphis does have to go to Hawaii to play this game. Should be a good one. Both teams do a lot. Hawaii throws the football a lot. Memphis throws the football a lot. I mean, I don't know. Seth Hannigan's a very good quarterback for Memphis. Calvin Austin's their best receiver as well. Over 1,000 yards receiving for him. Hawaii's an okay team, but all around, I think Memphis is better. I think the Memphis offense is better. I think the Memphis defense is better than Hawaii's defense. I think we will see a high-scoring game, but yeah, I don't got much to say about this one. I just don't think Hawaii's all that good. Going with Memphis to pick up the win here in the Hawaii Bowl on the road. Why is this game on Christmas? I don't know. We have NFL on Christmas, we have the NBA on Christmas, and we've got the Tax Act Camellia Bowl at 2:30. Okay, cool. Georgia State and Ball State. I mean, should be an okay game, I guess. I don't know. Ball State went 6-6. They're led by quarterback Drew Plitt. Georgia State is 7-5. Yeah, Tucker Gregg's their running back. He's pretty good too. No one's going to watch this game. It's just, no one's watching this. Georgia State's a -4.5 point favorite in this one. They're second in the Sun Belt East for Ball State. Again, 6-6. They're fourth in the West out of the MAC. Ball State won a game against Buffalo to end the season, of course, getting bowl eligible. They had those 3 losses at the beginning of the season after they won against an FCS school in Western Illinois, but then they won they lost 3 straight, excuse me. Penn State, Wyoming, and then Toledo. For Georgia State, again, finishing the season with 3 straight wins. The big one, and most notable, is the win over Coastal Carolina, a game where they put up 42 points on the Chanticleers on the road, stunning the Chants, and they beat Arkansas State, and then they beat Troy after that as well. Georgia State started the season with 2 losses, Army and UNC, and they also had a game where they lost to Auburn, and oh, by the way, they got blown out by App State to 45-16. You're gonna see a lot of running out of Georgia State here in this game, probably where they're gonna exploit the Ball State defense the most. Drew Plitt is a solid quarterback, very solid guy. He had 17 touchdowns this year for them. Keep an eye on Drew Plitt. Thinking he's a senior, though, so it's his last year playing college football. But it will be Drew Plitt's last game. Maybe we'll see him, I don't know, in the USFL next season. I don't know. I'm going Ball State, though. I do like Plitt a lot. I think Ball State should be able to outscore Georgia State in this one. You've got Georgia State at -4.5 point favorite in this one. Yeah, I think Ball State, the underdog, is going to win. So give me the Ball State Cardinals to win on Christmas in a game that nobody's going to watch. Now in the Quick Lane Bowl here in Detroit, Michigan, we've got the Nevada Wolfpack taking on the Western Michigan Broncos. You know how good Carson Strong is for Nevada. You know how good that guy is. One of the best passers in college football, over 4,000 yards passing. The thing is, he's not playing in this game, so great, because he's going to the draft. So I think Western Michigan's probably gonna win this game now. Western Michigan can run the football. Sean Tyler's a very good running back. Sky Moore is the best receiver too. 10 touchdowns in the season for him. So Nevada will be without Carson Strong in this game. That hurts this offense a lot because they throw the football a lot and they need him to win football games. So, I mean, that's all you need to know. Nevada's not winning this game without Carson Strong. It's just not going to happen. They were shaky even with him this season. And they had the win over Colorado State before he, of course, left for the draft. They lost to Air Force 41-39. They lost to San Diego State 23-21. They beat San Jose State only by 3. They lost to Fresno State as well. They beat Cal, which is huge, but, you know, I think my local high school team can beat Cal too. Western Michigan, though, on the other hand, this is a team that we talked about earlier. They beat Pittsburgh earlier this season, and Pittsburgh now is in a New Year's Six Bowl. We're going to talk about them in just a little bit. But Western Michigan, very good football team. They have that loss against Eastern Michigan 22-21, which sucks, but looking back at it now, they have a win over Northern Illinois, who ended up winning the MAC. Yeah, this is all Western Michigan. They can throw the football, they can run the football. They're going to be able to do whatever they want against Nevada, and I just don't know how much Nevada's offense can get going as well without Carson Strong. So yeah, give me Western Michigan to win this game. They're 6-point favorites. I think that's sitting at about the right odds. I'm going to take the Broncos, though, to win the Quick Lane Bowl. All right, so we've got the Military Bowl. It's going to be Boston College taking on the East Carolina Pirates. For East Carolina, they had that game at the end of the season where, I don't know, their fans came out for the Cincinnati game. I'm not going to lie to you, it's probably the first East Carolina game I've watched all season. Saw some of the South Carolina game, but Cincinnati beat them 35-13. Yeah, I mean, Cincinnati ran right through them. It was all Bearcats in that game, but they're taking on a Boston College team, our East Carolina, who's 6-6. They were 6-4 to start the year. They started 4-0. They played Colgate. They played UMass. They played Temple. They beat Missouri, which is a good win. But they lost to Clemson, NC State, Louisville, and Syracuse. They won their next 2 against VTech and Georgia Tech, and they dropped their last 2 against Florida State and Wake Forest. Boston College is 6-6. I mean, they're just such a mediocre team. I'll keep it a buck with you. East Carolina is very mediocre, honestly. They're very mediocre for the American. They can throw the ball very well, and Keenan Mitchell's a very good running back too. Tyler Steen's a very good receiver, in his own right. But it's like 2 very mediocre football teams. And am I going to take a mediocre team in the ACC or a mediocre team in the American? Taking the mediocre team in the Atlantic Coast section. Atlantic Coast Conference, yeah, East Carolina, again, they had a good win over Navy and Memphis, 2 back-to-back wins that were close competitive games. But when they get playing teams like Boston College, I'm not saying Boston College is the best team at all in the ACC, but just comparing Boston College and comparing what they have against what East Carolina's got, I really do like the Boston College Eagles to win this game. I think they'll pick up their 7th win of the season, and I think they will take home the Military Bowl. So now we've got an AAC versus SEC matchup here. It is Auburn taking on Houston in the Ticket Smarter Birmingham Bowl here, and we are now on December 28th. Of course, Auburn without their star quarterback in Bo Nix will likely transfer out. I'd be very surprised if he didn't. TJ Finley, though, the starting quarterback now for Auburn. You know what they're good at, though. It's the run game with Tank Bigsby. That man is a monster, but TJ Finley will have to rely on some of the passing game in this one for the Auburn Tigers. They started the season, though, 6-2, and they've dropped their last 4 to A&M, Mississippi State, South Carolina, and Alabama. Now, the Alabama game was very close. They only lost by 2 points, but they choked that game against Bama, and imagine if they won that one. It would be so different right now. Notre Dame would be number 4, Cincy would be 3, Georgia would probably be number 1 still, maybe Alabama would beat them, but still Georgia would be in the playoffs. Alabama wouldn't be with 2 losses. I don't know. Stuff would have been crazy, but in this game, it's Auburn versus Houston. Houston was very good all season. They started the year with the loss, and they ended the year with the loss. They lost to Texas Tech in their first game. They, got a huge wins in between. They beat a very good Southern Methodist team. They beat USF. They beat Memphis. They beat Temple. They beat Navy, and they lost to Cincinnati. There's no shame in that, though. Cincinnati's the 4th best team in the country, maybe higher. They lost 35-20. That's okay. Now they're going to take on Auburn, an Auburn team that's very shaky. And the way I see this game, if Houston can stop the run game, if they can stop Tank Bigsby and what Auburn's going to bring through the run game, I like Houston to win this game, man. I really do. Houston, you know the special teams game is some of the best in the country too. Clayton Tune's a very good quarterback. I like Houston to get the upset here, even though they're number 20. They are the underdogs coming in this one. Auburn sitting at minus 3 right now for Houston, +3, -145 for Auburn, +120, of course, for the Houston Cougars. I like Houston to win this game. I think they're going to upset Auburn here. I just don't think Auburn's all that great, especially at this point of the season. I know they had the close game against Bama, but they're not going to be motivated playing Houston, not at all. Give me Houston to go out. They're going to win the Ticket Smarter Birmingham Bowl here in Alabama. So can Malik Cunningham beat Air Force? Because Malik Cunningham is Louisville football this season, right? He's got 18 passing touchdowns, 19 on the ground. I mean, he is their entire team. Malik Cunningham is that squad. Can he beat Air Force? I don't know. I think this is going to be a very close one here. This one, of course, being contested in the Serve Pro First Responder Bowl. Hopefully this game doesn't get canceled like the first ever Serve Pro First Responder Bowl. Yeah, I like the game though. Air Force, you know what they do very well? They run the football a lot. Does this Air Force Falcons team. Their starting running back, of course, in Brad Roberts, 13 touchdowns on the ground this season, 1,279 rushing yards for him as well. Again, for Louisville, I broke down their entire team. It's all Malik Cunningham. I mean, he's their primary runner. Of course, he's their quarterback too. Malik Cunningham, I might have said Willis earlier. I know Malik Willis goes to Liberty. Malik Cunningham, though, is that entire Louisville squad, bro. He is that team. They had to win 2 out of their last 3 to get bowl eligible at the end of the season. They beat Syracuse and Duke back-to-back before losing to Kentucky in the last week of the season. For Air Force, they are 9-3, a team that closed out the season with 3 straight victories at Colorado State, at Nevada, at UNLV. Should be a close one, really should be. We're going to see what Air Force can do against this Louisville defense, and if Malik Cunningham can just pull this team to victory ever so slightly. We're going Louisville. Not like if I had a confidence points scale on this entire bowl season, this one's at the very lowest. I'm putting like a 1 or 2 on this because I'm not confident at all in this game, but I'm going to go with Louisville to barely beat Air Force here in the First Responder Bowl. I think Malik Cunningham is going to do just enough to get this team to victory. SEC versus Big 12 here in the AutoZone Liberty Bowl. We've got the Mississippi State Bulldogs taking on the 6-6 Texas Tech Red Raiders. I don't know how good Texas Tech is because they beat all the teams they're supposed to beat and they lose all the teams they're supposed to lose to. Like, look at their record. Like, seriously. I know they beat Houston. That's probably their best win of the season. But other than that, okay, they beat Stephen F. Austin. I mean, sure. Okay, they beat the Lumberjacks 28-22 in a game that should not have been that close. They beat FIU. Okay, they lose to Texas. They're supposed to lose that. They beat Western Virginia. Okay, again, they're probably supposed to win. They lose to TCU. They beat Kansas. Obviously supposed to win that game. They lose to Kansas State. They lose to Oklahoma. You're supposed to lose that. They beat Iowa State, which is the biggest win of the season by far for them. Beating Brock Purdy and the Cyclones is a huge win. They get shut out by Oklahoma State 23-0, and they lose to Baylor 27-24 in a game that was not supposed to be that close, but they fought really well on the road in Waco, Texas, losing to Baylor. They're taking on Mississippi State, where I said this earlier. I just don't know who's good in the SEC. I don't know because, okay, they're losing to Arkansas. They're losing to LSU, who are good football teams. Both of them are, 6-6? And they go out and beat Auburn. That's a good win. They beat Kentucky. But Auburn at the time was 17. Now they're 6-6, and they beat Kentucky, who at the time was 12. Now they're still 9-3. They're a good team, but I just don't know where to go in the SEC. The SEC is so weird. Again, I said it earlier. Everyone's good. Will Rogers is a very good quarterback for Mississippi State. You know what they do. I mean, it's a Mike Leach team. They're going to throw the football a million times. Okay, they don't run the football over there. It's that Washington State mindset. They throw the football the entire game. For Texas Tech, are they going to be able to hold up against this Mississippi State passing offense? No, they're not. Give me Mississippi State. This one's not even going to be close. This is going to be one of the bowl games that are an absolute blowout. There's a reason Mississippi State's a minus 8.5 point favorite in this one for Texas Tech. Plus 260 on the other side. Plus 8.5 they're getting. Yeah, this is all Mississippi State. The Bulldogs are going to kill the Red Raiders. Give me Mississippi State to get the win. North Carolina State taking on UCLA. The Bruins come this one 8-4. They are getting Dylan Gabriel now next season, which good for them, I guess. But for this season, they're taking on the 18th ranked NC State Wolfpack. They came onto the scene after beating Clemson at home 27-21. At the time, Clemson was still number 9, and NC State hasn't looked back. Actually, no, they lost to Wake Forest. They lost to Miami. Yeah. But still, NC State's not a bad football team. They're really not. If they beat Wake Forest, it would have been the ACC championship game. They probably would have lost to Pittsburgh anyway because Kenny Pickett's a dog. But still, I think NC State is a very good football team. UCLA, kind of the SEC, but the Pac-12 is not as good as SEC because in the SEC, everyone's good, and it's just a matter of, all right, who's the best team there, right? And they have good teams in the SEC. The Pac-12 is, all right, no one's really that good, and we just have some okay teams. Some of them are good, okay? I think Utah's a very good football team, but still, they lost 3 times this season. So the Pac-12, they don't have one, ideal team that, all right, we're going to send this team to the playoffs this season. That's how it always is with the Pac-12. They never have a good team in that conference. UCLA, though, could they be that team? Well, at the start of the season, it looked like they were going to be because they beat LSU. It was a huge win for them. LSU was number 16 at the time, and they dropped a game to Jake Haener and the Fresno State Bulldogs. When they beat Stanford, you're thinking, okay, they get through the season with only 1 loss, and that 1 loss is Fresno State, and maybe Fresno State, stays winning, and their only loss is to Oregon. All right, UCLA, Oregon, Pac-12 championship game, I can get behind that. No, they get blown up at Arizona State. Oh, my goodness. I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, Dorian Robinson's a good quarterback, but it's the run game for UCLA. That's where they're good at. Devin Leary's a good quarterback for NC State. Yeah, I think the Wolfpack are going to win. the Pac-12 is not very good, and UCLA is not one of those good teams. They're 8-4, but they're not a great 8-4. I know they finished the season with 3 straight wins. Given Colorado's not good, USC's not good, Cal's not good either. NC State's got some good wins over Sam Howell and North Carolina in the last week of the season. They beat Clemson when they were still good. They beat Boston College. They beat Louisville. Don't get me wrong, Clemson's still a good team. They're in the Cheez-It Bowl, given it's kind of a joke, but they still went 9-3. Clemson's not a horrible football team. It's just not there. They're just not the national championship contenders like everyone thought they were going to be at the beginning of the season. So still, NC State's going to win this game. We'll get to Clemson. We talked about the Cheez-It Bowl later. Give me NC State to win this game here. They're going to take home the, what is this? Yeah, it's the Holiday Bowl. So they're going to win the Holiday Bowl. Give me the Wolfpack. All right, next up, we have got the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. It is between the West Virginia Mountaineers and the Minnesota Golden Gophers. For West Virginia, this is a team that won their last 2 games to become bowl eligible. They started the year 4-6, but they got 2 back-to-back wins in 2 very close games over the Texas Longhorns and in the Kansas Jayhawks. West Virginia, they had that close game at Oklahoma where they lost 16-13, and they actually beat Iowa State at home 38-31, and then they went on the road. Or actually, no, they took on Oklahoma State at home and lost as well. West Virginia is just a solid team, 6-6, one of those middle of the pack Big 12 squads. They're taking on Minnesota. Minnesota, of course, led by their quarterback in Tanner Morgan. And it's been weird for Tanner Morgan because after his 2019 season where he had both Rashad Bateman and Tyler Johnson, you're looking at Tanner Morgan as a potential second or third round pick in a couple years. His 2020 season wasn't very good. This season, it was just nothing special because Minnesota, since they lost Johnson and Bateman, obviously both the NFL, they've been running the football a lot. They've got Ty Thomas, they've got Trey Potts, they've got Marquise Irving as well as the three-headed monster at running back from Minnesota. So it's a very run-heavy team now. Of course, losing their two star receivers, and they still went 8-4. And now this is a Minnesota team. If they beat Illinois in the middle of the season, they would have been the Big Ten championship game instead of Iowa. This is not a very bad Minnesota team at all. I think this team's still pretty solid. I know they're not ranked because of the 4 losses, and it is because of the Bowling Green loss. We lost 14-10 in the middle of the year, but you get rid of that loss. Minnesota's 9-3. They had a close game against Iowa that they only lost Iowa by 5 points. They had the competitive game to open up the season against Ohio State. They lost by 14, but that game was very competitive for the first half of that one. I think this Minnesota team's still pretty good. Tanner Morgan, again, does what he needs to do. He's I don't know, what is the equivalent in college football? He's basically the Ryan Tannehill of college football. He can make the throws we need him to make the throws. He's not as fast as Tannehill is for the Titans, but he's a really good game manager, if you want to say. Morgan's a solid guy. I hope in the NFL in a couple of years. Actually, next year he's a senior now, but I think Minnesota's going to win. You look at the line for this one, Minnesota minus 4.5. I think they'll cover. All around, they're just a better team than the Mountaineers. So give me the Golden Gophers to beat West Virginia, and they're going to win the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. It is the Fenway Bowl between 2 teams who just aren't playing good football, especially Virginia as of late. Virginia starts the year 6-2, and they finish the season 6-6. Yikes. They get 66 points put on them against BYU. They went on the road and they lost 66-49. They lost at home against Notre Dame 28-3. They went to Pitt and lost 48-38, and they lost to Virginia Tech 29-24. Not good. Not good at all. Virginia has definitely not played good football as of late. Brennan Armstrong, of course, their quarterback, filling in, of course, for Bryce Perkins, left for the NFL a couple years ago. Armstrong's good. He makes all the passes he needs to make. Over 4,400 passing yards this season for him. Virginia's taken on a team, of course, from the American. It is SMU, another team that started the season very well. They were undefeated until they lost 4 out of their last 5. They lost to Houston, Memphis, Cincinnati, and Tulsa, and given 3 out of those 4 games were on the road. But they lost to Tulsa the last game of the season, and they beat Central Florida in between those 4 losses. But they start off the season, really good, 7-0. They get wins over USF, Navy, TCU. They go on the road to Texas Christian and win. They also beat Tulane. But since then, man, SMU has taken some, falls in the rankings. I think were they ranked at one point? I don't know. SMU, though, still a very good team, led by, I'm pretty high on him, Reggie Roberson Jr., the senior. That man is a monster. If you watch the Giants franchise, we have Reggie Roberson. I put him at tight end, but that dude is a monster at tight end for Southern Methodist. It's an all-around good SMU team, but the thing is, they're just not playing good football right now. Really, ever since they lost to Houston, that game where they got the kick return, it was their first loss of the season. Houston has a kick return to win the game with 2 seconds remaining on the road for SMU. They haven't been the same team since, really. They lose by 3 to Memphis, and then the rest is history. But the thing is, Virginia's not playing good football at all either. Virginia, though, you know what they're going to bring. They throw the football a million times a game. For SMU, they throw a lot, but they still can run the football too. I think you're going to see a high-scoring affair. Both these teams, again, nothing to lose because both of them have been losing a lot recently. I'm going to go ever so slightly. I think SMU is going to beat the ACC school here. I think the Southern Methodist Mustangs are going to win the Fenway Bowl. I mean, who knows who's going to win the Pinstripe Bowl? It's Maryland and Virginia Tech, two teams who are 6-6. Two teams who started the season pretty well. For Maryland, they start 4-0, and then they finish the year 2-6. And Virginia Tech's not very good either. They started the season very well. They beat UNC, where North Carolina was ranked number 10. They beat them at home 17-10. I believe that was on that Friday game. And Virginia Tech, okay, they beat Middle Tennessee after that, and they dropped the game to West Virginia. And the rest just hasn't been very good for Virginia Tech. It's just two teams who they don't beat the best teams, and they don't really lose the best teams either. It's just weird. I had Maryland 6-6. Again, they had recently, and the only reason they are bowl eligible is because they beat Rutgers in their last game. They beat Iowa by 3 points to get their 4th win of the season. Then one of the wins also was Kent State. And oh, by the way, the other one is against FCS school, the Howard Bison. Of course, Maryland led by their quarterback in Taula Tagovailoa, Tua's brother, of course. And then you've got Virginia Tech too, solid team. Again, their big standout victory is the win over UNC, but since then though, it has been tough. Sledding for Virginia Tech. Again, it's two 6-6 teams. One of the tougher games to predict in the entire bowl slate. Ever so slightly going with Maryland. I really can't give you a confident prediction at all for this one. Again, both these teams just not playing great football. For Maryland, the only reason they are in a bowl game is because they ran into the worst team in the Big Ten in Rutgers, and Virginia Tech barely squeaked one out against UVA in their last one. Ever so slightly, though, I am going with the Maryland Terrapins to win this one. Going Maryland to pick up the win here in the Pinstripe Bowl. All right, so now we get the really good bowl games. Like from here on out, for the most part, very good games coming up. Right now, you've got the Cheez-It Bowl. Yes, the Cheez-It Bowl. Clemson and Iowa State. Now, when this season started, I don't think anyone thought that Clemson was going to end up in the Cheez-It Bowl. They started the season, number 3. They lose that first game of the season to Georgia. They lose 10-3, and then the rest hasn't been great, but honestly, this team's still 9-3. And I know it's weird that Clemson loses 3 games, but look who they lost to. All right, they lose to Georgia, who's number 3 in the nation right now. They lose to NC State, who's not a horrible football team, and they lose to Pittsburgh, Kenny Pickett, and the Panthers, who ended up winning the ACC, and unfortunately, Pickett's not going to be playing in the Peach Bowl, but still, Pittsburgh is a very good team, and to close out the season, Clemson wins 5 straight, and given it's a game against FSU that they barely win, a game against Louisville they barely win, they beat UConn, obviously they blow them out, and their biggest win of the season, I would say, is number 10 Wake Forest. They beat them 48-27. The game's not competitive, and then they blow out SC, South Carolina, of course, in their last game as well, and it wasn't the season that everyone thought we were going to get out of DJ Uyangale, but it wasn't a bad year, and I get it, it's a bad year for Clemson, but, for looking at the rest, like, if this is another ACC school, this is a very good year for Clemson. They're ranked, and they set themselves up to be in a very good position for next year. For Iowa State, this is a team that I think a lot of people thought they were going to do a lot better, and as soon as they had that game against Northern Illinois, the first game of the season where they only won by 6 points, you knew it was going to be a struggle for them. They went 7-5 this year, which again is kind of disappointing. They have Breece Hall, one of the better running backs in college football. They have Brock Purdy, who's a senior, but he's one of the better quarterbacks in college football as well, and things just didn't really turn out for them this season. Xavier Hutchinson's a very good receiver too. Breece Hall ran for about almost 1,500 yards this season. I mean, that guy's really good. 20 touchdowns from Brock Purdy, 3,000 yards, 18 touchdowns as well. Iowa State's offense is there, but man, I mean, they dropped that game 41-38 against Texas Tech, 38-31 against West Virginia. I mean, Baylor, they lost 31-29. They're a classic Big 12 school, man. They can throw the ball a lot, they can run the ball a lot. They have very good offense, it's an explosive offense, but when it comes to defense, they can't really play. So Iowa State and Clemson here. Clemson's offense has been shaky at times. It's just a matter of can they score on Iowa State, and can Iowa State keep up with them if Clemson can keep scoring? I don't know. It's another toss-up here. You look at the odds in this game. Yeah, Clemson is a plus 1.5 point favorites, or underdogs in this one, actually. So Iowa State slight favorites, and I'm going to go with the Cyclones. Ever so slightly, I think Brock Purdy and Breece Hall are going to pull the Cyclones out of this one. I think Iowa State is going to beat Clemson to win the Cheez-It Bowl. Now we've got a very good Alamo Bowl. It's going to be the Oklahoma Sooners. They are currently number 16, and you got the number 14 ranked Oregon Ducks here in the Valero Alamo Bowl. All right, I've watched almost every single Oregon game this season. Yeah, I watched the Fresno State game. I even watched when they beat Stony Brook as well, 48-7. They're gonna have a lot of trouble with Oklahoma. I don't know how Oregon wins this game. You'll watch the 2 Utah games, and that's all you gotta see. Like, Oregon's having close games this season with teams that they shouldn't be competitive with. And I know they beat Ohio State by 7. They won in Columbus. It's a huge win, 35-28. That's all fun and games. But you're having close games against Fresno State. I know I hyped up Fresno State earlier with Jay Kaner and all of that, but still, they beat Fresno State by 7. They beat Cal by 7. They beat UCLA by 3. They beat Colorado by about 20, but that game was close in the first half. They beat Washington by 10, Washington State by 14, Oregon State by 9, and they get blown out twice against Utah. Okay, what does Utah do very well? Well, they run the football pretty well. What does Oregon not do very well? They can't stop the run at all, at all. The offense is another story. Anthony Brown, I think, did an okay job as his real first big season here with the Oregon Ducks, but I mean, the loss of CJ Verdell hurts. Travis Dye did a solid job, though, backing him up and, of course, taking over in that starting role. But can Oregon stop Kennedy Brooks? No. And Caleb Williams will do everything this Oklahoma offense will need him to do. Obviously, Spencer Rattler going to South Carolina, which is kind of weird, but I thought he was going to go to USC, but that's all right. Caleb Williams is a solid guy for Oklahoma. Again, he does what the team needs him to do. Kennedy Brooks, though, is going to run all over Oregon in this game. He just will. And I don't really give a damn about the Oregon offense. I know Oklahoma doesn't play defense all that well, so Oregon will score in this game. No doubt about it. I mean, again, it will be on Anthony Brown if he can get this team scoring in this game. Travis Dye is going to always do his thing. But if Anthony Brown can get going, Oregon will be in this game with Oklahoma. But when you keep looking at it, man, can Oregon really stop the run against Oklahoma? I don't think they will be able to. Oklahoma lost 2 games this season, 2 on the road, at Baylor, at Oklahoma State. Other than that, they've been pretty good, even though they've been shaky in some games and have had close games. They've looked better than Oregon. And these are 2 teams that are supposed to make the playoffs this year. They both didn't. They're both now in the top 16, which sucks. But I think the Sooners are better than Oregon here. I just wasn't impressed with the 2 Oregon games against Utah. And those alone, man, just make me pick the Oklahoma Sooners. So we're going with the Sooners to win the Valero Alamo Bowl here over the Oregon Ducks. All right, this is a fun one now here in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Hopefully the trophy doesn't get broken for the winner after this game. But you got South Carolina taking on North Carolina. As far as I know, and I'm pretty sure Sam Howell is going to be playing this game, unlike some other quarterbacks playing in these bowl games. But this is huge for North Carolina. They get their star quarterback playing in this one. Sam Howell, again, he was supposed to be what, like the top quarterback picked in this draft to start the season. They lose the first game to Virginia Tech. They've been up and down, have the North Carolina Tar Heels throughout this entire season. They won a game against Virginia, and the next week they lose to Georgia Tech. They beat Duke, but they lose to Florida State. They beat Miami, they lose to Notre Dame. They beat Wake Forest somehow 58-55 in a shootout, but they lose to Pitt the week after. They beat Warford, and they lose to NC State. It's just wins and losses for North Carolina. Now, I don't know what to tell you about South Carolina because this team, I mean, are they good? It's the whole thing with the SEC. I don't know who's good because then they go out of conference. They play East Carolina. They only beat them by 3 points. This is a team that Cincinnati beat by what? Like 30? And they play Troy. They only beat them by 9 points. And they play Clemson. They get blown out by 30 at home. Their last game of the season. They play Kentucky. They only lose by 6. They beat Vandy only by 1 point. I just don't know what to make out of South Carolina. I don't know what to make out of Luke Doty's squad here in South Carolina. If you're having close games with Vanderbilt, and if you're getting blown out still by 30 by Clemson, I think North Carolina is going to eat them alive. And especially that Sam Howell's playing. Sam Howell's going to be motivated to play this game. It's going to be his final game as a member of the North Carolina Tar Heels. I think he's going to will his team to victory here. I think North Carolina is going to finish here with a winning record. Ty Chandler's a very good running back as well for this UNC squad. But I think it's going to be, of course, Sam Howell's farewell game here as a member of the North Carolina Tar Heels. I think he's going to pick up the victory here for UNC. So I think North Carolina is going to beat South Carolina here in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. So I'm sorry if you came to this video here for Purdue, but I'm not picking against Tennessee. Like, if you watch the channel, you know we got the Tennessee Volunteers Dynasty mode on NCAA 14. We've been playing with that team a lot. They're in the Trans-Perfect Music City Bowl, Tennessee versus Purdue. I'm excited to watch this Tennessee team, though, against Purdue. Tennessee's very good. Hendon Hooker, of course, their senior quarterback leading the charge. You've got the receiving core. You got Cedric Tillman. You got Jalen Hyatt. You've got Princeton Fant, I guess they're starting tight end. You got Javonte Payton. You got Jacob Warren. You've got Bayless Jones. Actually, Warren and Fant do split time at receiver. The running back core, you got Tylen Evans and Jabari Small leading the charge. But, I mean, this is the Hendon Hooker show, man. That man can launch it deep downfield. But let's give some respect to Purdue. And by the way, Tennessee 7-5 is this at the end of the season, they finished the year beating USA, obviously, South Alabama, and beating Vandy. For Purdue, though, this is a good team. They, of course, most known for their victory over Michigan State and Iowa. Yeah, they beat number 2 and 3 when they played them this season. They beat Iowa on the road 24-7, and they beat Michigan 40-29. Now, they did drop the game to Ohio State, but they finished the year back-to-back wins over both Northwestern and Indiana, and they started the year with a win over the Oregon State Beavers as well. This Purdue team is very good. Aiden O'Connell's a very good quarterback. David Bell's a very good receiver. And that combination is very deadly for Purdue, and if Tennessee can't stop them, it's going to be a long day for the Volunteers here in the Music City Bowl. I'm expecting a shootout, though. Purdue puts up a lot of points. Tennessee puts up a lot of points as well. You're going to see a very high-scoring game here in this Music City Bowl. But I'm not picking against Tennessee. I can't do it. I can't do it with the franchise. I'm sorry. I can't do it. I just can't do it. We're picking Tennessee, even though I think Purdue's got a very good chance to win this game. You look at the odds right now. You got Tennessee as a 4-point favorite. Kind of interesting. Really kind of interesting. But again, you just don't know how good these SEC schools are. Because, I mean, for Tennessee, you look at their non-conference this year. It's South Alabama, who they blew out, which they should. They beat Bowling Green. They had the close game to Pitt. And then they had a FCS school. They beat Tennessee Tech 56-0. You just don't know. Ever so slightly, though, we're going with Hendon Hooker and the boys. Tennessee's going to win this one. They're going to win the Music City Bowl. All right, here we go. We start off with the big bowl games here. It's the Peach Bowl. It's Kenny Pickett in Pittsburgh taking on Kenneth Walker and the Michigan State Spartans. Oh, my goodness, what a game. Oh, wait. Kenny Pickett's not playing? Oh, and Kenneth Walker's not playing either. Oh. Okay. So we've got number 12 Pitt taking on number 10 Michigan State, and the two biggest names in this game aren't playing. The two potentially first-round picks, I'm thinking Kenneth Walker's going to be a first-round pick, let's hope. They're not playing, and that sucks. I mean, for Michigan State, it's going to be probably Jordan Simmons leading the charge in the running game for them. You know, Peyton Thorne is still their quarterback. He's solid. For Pitt, I mean, no Kenny Pickett sucks. I think it's going to be Nick Patty's going to be the quarterback. I mean, you got Israel Abanikanda at running back for them. Jordan Addison's a very good receiver, but yeah, we went from Kenny Pickett versus Kenneth Walker to Peyton Thorne versus Israel Abanikanda. And no disrespect to these guys, but I mean, there's a reason like Pitt was here in this spot. And there's a reason Michigan State was in this spot too. I mean, those two guys are the two best players on both of their respective teams. Now, it's just who leaves a bigger impact on each of the teams. I know Kenneth Walker's very good. And this guy, I think, should have been definitely recognized at least as a finalist for Heisman, even though the four guys I picked were tremendous. CJ Stroud had a very good season. Kenny Pickett had a very good season. Aiden Hutchinson had one of the best seasons I've seen at defensive end the entire time I've been watching college football. And then, of course, Bryce Young, the Heisman. Great season for him at quarterback. But even though I think Walker's very good, I think Kenny Pickett's going to make a bigger impact, or it's a bigger loss for Pittsburgh than what Walker can bring. Because it's hard to replicate what Kenny Pickett does up there. And maybe it's the fake slide, because I don't know if anyone can do that fake slide ever again. Oh, wait, it's banned now. But Pittsburgh relies on Kenny Pickett to get the ball, of course, to Jordan Addison and all of his threats at receiver. I mean, you got Shocky Jock Louis as well. You got Jared Wayne. I mean, man, it's going to be tough for Pittsburgh not to win this game. Of course, Michigan State still got their quarterback. Peyton Thorne is playing this game. No Kenneth Walker is going to hurt, but I think they can make up in the run game, and I don't think it's going to be too bad. Again, they don't use Jordan Simmons all that much, but I think Simmons can make up for at least a little bit of what Kenneth Walker is going to leave for this team. But yeah, I mean, when Pitt without Kenny Pickett's going to suck. It is going to suck. And they had that great game against Wake Forest where they beat him. They beat Clemson. It was a big turning point in the Coastal Division, or in the ACC, of course, comes in the Atlantic, But yeah, and they beat UNC too, 30-23. Pittsburgh had one of their best seasons in a very long time. Kenny Pickett, I think, is going to be the first quarterback drafted. Who knows, maybe Atlanta? I don't know where he's going to go. Maybe the Falcons, but yeah, it's just going to be tough for Pittsburgh. They're going to end the season with a loss. Yeah, Michigan State's going to run right over them. I think they're going to. I just think the loss of Kenny Pickett's going to really hurt this Pittsburgh team. It's just going to mess up everything they've got going. I'm going Michigan State to beat Pittsburgh, and of course, they're going to win the Peach Bowl. All right, it is now the SRS Distribution Las Vegas Bowl. It's the Wisconsin Badgers taking on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Wisconsin's going to run right over Arizona State. Arizona State cannot stop the run. I mean, I just witnessed when Arizona State took on Oregon State, BJ Baylor ran right through that team. I mean, Oregon State, the entire game was just centered around BJ Baylor. Get that man the football, and we're just going to run straight through Arizona State, and that's what happened. Wisconsin's got Braylon Allen, who's a very good running back. I think he's going to do the exact same thing. Wisconsin's got a committee of a lot of good running backs on that team. Graham Mertz is just meh. I'll keep it a buck with you. But Wisconsin's run attack is going to be a lot for Arizona State to handle. Arizona State, I've seen them struggle with Utah, a team that can run the football very well. BYU, Washington State doesn't run the football. But Oregon State obviously just, recently, that's only 3 weeks ago, ran the football against Arizona State, and Arizona State had a lot of trouble with that. And I hate to say it, but the Pac-12 is not very good. They're just not very good. Wisconsin, of course, they have the loss to Minnesota, which really screwed them over because now they're in the Las Vegas Bowl, and if they won that game, I mean, they'd be looking at least a better bowl than this. No disrespect to Las Vegas Bowl, but Wisconsin was hoping for something better than this coming into the season, even though they lost to Penn State the first week. They started the season 1-3 after losing to Penn State. They beat East Michigan, lost to Notre Dame 41-13, lost to Michigan 28-17. They kind of turned the season around after that because they beat Illinois, beat Army, beat Purdue. They beat number 9 Iowa after Iowa lost to Purdue, and they beat Rutgers, Northwestern, and Nebraska before losing it to the Golden Gophers. But again, Arizona State, of course, led by their quarterback and Jaden Daniels, not Jaden McDaniels. And they're an okay team. Of course, Herm Edwards, still their coach. I think he's staying next season. I think he'll be there. But it's 8-4 Arizona State, 8-4 Wisconsin. Wisconsin all around is just the better team. I don't know if Arizona State can stop the run game that Wisconsin's going to bring. And we're going to go with the Badgers to beat the Sun Devils. I think Wisconsin's going to take home the Las Vegas Bowl trophy. So kind of crazy, this one's the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. It's Wake Forest and Texas A&M. Very fun game. It's at 11 o'clock in the morning, which is surprising. But for Wake Forest, the Demon Deacons had a better season than anyone thought they were going to have. Yeah, they're ranked number 17. Wake Forest is ranked number 17. Just shout out to that team, man. Sam Hartman had a season that I don't think anyone thought he was going to have. And for a little bit, when Wake Forest is still undefeated, I think it was after the Army game, I was kind of behind the Sam Hartman for Heisman campaign. And even if they didn't blow that game against North Carolina, imagine that undefeated Wake Forest team coming in 8-0 going into the Clemson game. Or 9-0 coming into the Clemson game. I'm just saying maybe they would have won that one. It would have been a little bit different for Wake Forest. But they dropped the game to UNC in a game where they scored 55 points, but it just wasn't enough. But man, I mean, this Wake Forest offense is so good. Sam Hartman airs this ball out. He's got his star receiver, of course, in A.T. Perry. And Roberson's very good as well. Texas A&M, they're known for that win over Alabama this season. They beat them 41-38. Zach Calzada had a very good game that one. They've got their tight end, Jalen Weirdemeyer. They've got Isaiah Spiller as well at running back. My point is, the SEC is just so questionable. You don't know how good these teams are because Texas A&M, sure, they beat Alabama, they beat Missouri, they beat South Carolina, they beat Auburn, and they lost 29-19 against Matt Corral and Ole Miss. And then they beat Prairie View, and then they lost to LSU 27-24 to close out the regular season. I just don't know what to make of this. They beat Alabama one week. The week before, they lost 26-22 to Mississippi State. It's the SEC, man. It is a cluster. I don't know. I think, yeah, A&M's a favorite right now. A&M, 5-point favorites in this game. Kind of crazy, minus 200 on the money line for the Aggies. You got plus 165 for the Demon Deeks. I'm taking the underdogs in this one. Yeah, I'm going to take Wake Forest. I've been behind this Wake Forest team for a very long time. I was one of the believers very early on this Wake Forest team, and no, did they win the SEC? Of course, they didn't, but still, they started the year, 8-0. They look very good. Their offense is very solid. Sam Hartman, I think, is one of the better quarterbacks in college football. And again, it was a very surprising season out of Sam Hartman. And I think it's going to be capped off here with a victory in the Gator Bowl. I think they're going to upset number 25 Texas A&M. Of course, looking at the odds, it's going to be an upset. We're going to take Wake Forest to pull this one off. I think they're going to win the Gator Bowl. It's time for the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. We've got the Washington State Cougars taking on the Miami Hurricanes. And it wasn't the season Miami thought they were going to have, but Miami's like low-key the Dallas Cowboys of college football. It feels like every year, oh my goodness, Miami's going to be so good. And they run to Alabama week 1, lose 44-13. They beat App State only by 2 points after that, and they lose to Michigan State, lost to UVA, lost to UNC, but they ended the season very well. They won 5 of their last 6. They beat NC State by 1 point. They beat a very good Pittsburgh team by 4 points. They beat Georgia Tech by 3 points. They lost to Florida State by 3 points, beat Virginia Tech by 12, and then blew out Duke by 37 in their last game of the season. Miami gets into a lot of close games, and of course, the season turned difficult for Miami, definitely after they lost Derek King early in the season. But Tyler Van Dyke's done a solid job coming in replacement for him. They're taking on a Washington State team here who I don't know what to make out this Washington State team because they started the season losing to Utah State, and Utah State's a good Mountain West school, don't get me wrong. They get blown out by USC, who turned out not to be very good at all either. Utah they lost to, and they beat Cal, they beat Oregon State, they beat Stanford by 3 points only. They lost to BYU, no shame in that, and they lost to Oregon, no shame in that as well. But they're a 7-5 Pac-12 team. They got second in the Pac-12 North too. That shows you how not great the Pac-12 North is, or really the Pac-12 in general. But yeah, you got a 7-5 Washington State team taking on a 7-5 Miami Hurricane squad. 2 passing offenses. Again, Washington State's running the football a little bit more now, of course, with Mike Leach gone, but still their primary pass-first offense. Same can be said about the Hurricanes. We're going to take Miami here in this one. I still have so many question marks against the Pac-12, and over the last, 3 years, Pac-12 has played horribly in bowl games. Very bad the Pac-12 has been post-regular season. So I'm going to take Miami to beat Washington State here. I'm going to continue my trend, I think, picking against Pac-12 schools. I don't know if I picked one yet. Again, there's 44 bowl games, so excuse me if I forgot a game. But yeah, I'm going to take the Miami Hurricanes to beat Washington State. I think they'll get it done. 2.5-point favorites. I think they're going to cover as well. So yeah, give me the Hurricanes. Now it is time for the Barstool Arizona Bowl. We've got Central Michigan taking on Boise State. So Barstool, I think this game's going to be exclusively on Barstool here at 2 p.m. Very fun game here. Obviously, the college football playoffs are on the same exact day, so I don't think anyone's going to be watching this. But still, it's cool that Barstool got a game here. Central Michigan is 8-4, of course, coming out of the MAC, and then for Boise State, obviously 7-5. They were third in the Mountain Division, obviously in the Mountain West. Boise State started the season with that loss against UCF, and then, you got to go back to it. It's that game against Oklahoma State. Yeah, did they lose? They did, but it was a 21-20 game against an Oklahoma State team that turned out a lot better than a lot of people thought they were going to be this year. But Boise's pass offense is very good. Central Michigan, for this Chippewas team, they run the football very well. Nichols is a very good running back they got there. He had, 1,700 rushing yards a season, 15 touchdowns. That man's a monster. And if the Chippewas are going to win this game, it's going to be through that run attack. If Boise's going to win that game, it's if they can stop Nichols and that run game, and if they can, of course, get their passing offense going, which, honestly, I think they'll probably do. I think Boise State all around is the better team compared to them and Central Michigan. There's a reason Boise State are 8.5-point favorites coming into this game on the line. You've got -300 coming in for Boise State, +240 for the Chippewas on the other side. I think this is going to be Boise State winning this game here in the Barstool Arizona Bowl. Sorry if it's a short prediction, but you know what's next, the playoffs. So we're going to go end this one pretty quick. I think Boise State's going to beat Central Michigan. They're going to win the first ever Barstool Arizona Bowl. All right. So I have been the biggest supporter of Cincinnati this entire season. I was so big on Cincinnati coming into this year since last season when they lost, of course, to Georgia in the Peach Bowl, but I have been the biggest Cincinnati fan this season. I've cheered this Bearcats team on from the start, and I'm so excited they're finally in the playoffs. And then they run into Alabama. That sucks. It sucks. But if any team is going to go in, a group of 5 team, if one of them are going to go in and they're going to go in the playoffs, if they're going to win a game, or if they're going to have to play Alabama, it's going to be the Bearcats. This is the team. This is the team out of the group of 5. They're the chosen ones. I know UCF had those great years in the American, but this is the team that the American's putting out there, and it's a very good Cincinnati team. Desmond Ridder, last season, if he went out for the draft, maybe he'd be what? 4th round pick, a 5th round pick. This year, that man either 1st or 2nd round. Desmond Ridder's really, made himself a tremendous quarterback here for this Bearcat squad. And the big thing I want to put out for this game, it's the Jerome Ford revenge game. Jerome Ford was with Alabama. He saw Najee Harris grow into a star at that place. He's seen so many running backs turn into monsters at Alabama. He never got a shot for the Crimson Tide. Here he is the starting running back for Cincinnati, and now he gets a revenge game against Alabama here in the Cotton Bowl. I'm so pumped. I think Jerome Ford's going to have a monster day for Cincinnati in this game. I think really, again, revenge game against Alabama. Alabama's 13.5-point favorites. I don't give a damn. I think Jerome Ford's going to have a very good game. The problem for Cincinnati is, again, they're playing Alabama. And Alabama I mean, what do you want me to say? They're Alabama. Other than that game against Texas A&M, this team's been very good all season. I know the Auburn game, they did not look impressive at all. In the Arkansas game, even though they didn't, win it by all that much, they still didn't look all that impressive too. It's just been weird for Alabama because it's the season that, it really felt like everyone was writing them off, even from the beginning of the season, even when they were still undefeated, right? I mean, they were beating Miami, they beat Florida, but that was a game they only won by 2. Emory Jones almost brought that team back, and Florida almost won at home. They beat Ole Miss, which is cool, but they lost to A&M, and you're thinking, okay, this team's probably going to trip up one more time if it's not eventually going to be that Georgia game. They beat Tennessee. They barely beat LSU. They barely beat Arkansas. They barely win in the Iron Bowl, and they go in and they blow out UGA. No one's beat Georgia like that all season. No one's put up a fight against Georgia like that. And if last week, if before the Georgia-Alabama game even played, before that game even started, if you tell me Alabama and Cincinnati, who's going to win that game, I'm picking Cincinnati. Because I just think Cincinnati's the better team. I think the defense is going to be able to stop the Alabama offense. I wasn't too impressed with Bryce Young in the Auburn game. Brian Robinson couldn't really get going in that game either. Auburn found a way, at least in the first half, to stop Jamison Williams, and of course, John Mechie got hurt I believe it was in the second half of the Iron Bowl too. Cameron Latu's a good tight end. Don't get me wrong, but I was thinking, hey, Cincinnati probably can win this game. Now it's tough. Because we saw something out of this Alabama team in the UGA game that we haven't seen all season, and no one's been able to shut down Stetson Bennett like the Alabama defense did. And I know Bennett still had, 300 plus yards in that game, but Bryce Young, man, that was his Heisman moment, that was his Heisman game. 421 passing yards for Bryce Young in that one, 3 touchdowns. There's a reason he won the Heisman Trophy this season. Can Cincinnati do to Alabama what Auburn was doing, and can they finish the job? Because I think there's a very good chance they can do that still with Alabama beating Georgia last week. Because if any team's going to do it from the group of 5, it's going to be the Bearcats. The Cincinnati team is still very good. I don't give a damn they're 13.5-point underdogs. They're a very good team, and you know what? We're taking Cincinnati to beat Alabama. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm taking Cincinnati. Ever so slightly, I'm taking the Bearcats. I think it's going to be a very close game. At the very least, I think they're going to cover. I think they'll cover the spread. I don't think Alabama's going to blow them up by that much, even if Alabama wins. But if Cincinnati can make Bryce Young look average, like he kind of did in the Auburn game. He didn't look great in that game. And it's not like Auburn or Bama was even playing Bo Nix in that game. They weren't. They're playing Desmond Ridder now for the Cincinnati game. And it's Jerome Ford's revenge game. We will see if there truly are levels to this game, which there most definitely could. But in this one scenario, Cincinnati, Alabama, I'm picking the Bearcats to go to the Cotton Bowl. I think they're going to beat Alabama. Give me Cincinnati to win the first round of the playoffs. Let's go. We're taking Desmond Ridder and Cincinnati to beat Bama here in the Cotton Bowl. So it is time for the Orange Bowl. It is Michigan and Georgia. So Georgia again drops the Alabama game. You know how good this Georgia team is. They didn't have any troubles in the regular season. They didn't even have a close game before the Alabama game, which of course they lost. But something I want to mention going into that Alabama game and just about that SEC championship game is that Georgia had nothing to play for. They truly didn't. And maybe sure they had to play for that. They were playing for a first round spot in the playoffs. Okay, they're playing to play Cincinnati. But honestly, you look at the matchup, I think Georgia rather play Michigan. And now, again, they go into this Michigan game knowing that even when they went to the Alabama game, they knew they probably have to play Alabama twice. Or at least, there's the possibility of that. The SEC championship game didn't mean anything to this Georgia team because they knew they were getting to the playoffs no matter what. Even if they lost 45-0, they're still getting into the playoffs. And now they get a shot against Michigan, and I'll tell you why Georgia matches up very well with this Michigan team. No team's been able to run the football effectively against Georgia for 4 straight quarters. No team's been able to do it. Brian Robinson is a very good running back for Alabama. That man only had 50 yards against Georgia. And I know they haven't threw the football 45 times in that game with Bryce Young, but even Alabama couldn't get Robinson going in that game. Michigan, everyone knows who their running back is. After the Michigan State game, Hassan Haskins has made himself a star in college football. 20 touchdowns this season. If any team, though, is going to stop that man, it is Georgia. Because Georgia does not give up a lot of rushing yards. And Georgia's defense does not give up a lot of yards at all. Because my point I was talking about earlier with the SEC, I don't know who's good, except for 2 teams. I know Georgia's good and I know Alabama's good. And I put Ole Miss, okay, maybe they're good. Maybe Ole Miss is just better than the rest of the pack. But you look at all these games that Georgia's playing with these other teams in the SEC, and I'll include Clemson sure in that too, because they beat Clemson 10-3. They beat South Carolina 40-13. Just remember the lower score in all these games. Vandy 62-0, that game doesn't count. Arkansas 37-0. Arkansas was number 8 going in that game. And I remember I was I was thinking, okay, I had Arkansas to cover the alternate spread against Georgia in that game. I think it was like plus 24.5. They didn't cover that. Crazy. I had that. It was on Yahoo slate, but still, I had them to cover that. Thankfully, I didn't put money on that. But yeah, I mean, Arkansas, they were number 8 at the time. They lost 37-0. They beat Auburn 34-10 in Georgia. They beat Kentucky 30-13. Florida 34-7. Missouri 43-6. Tennessee put up 17 points, but Tennessee's going to do that with their aggressive passing offense. They lost 41-17 to the Volunteers. They beat Charleston Southern, I believe, 56-7. They beat Georgia Tech 45-0. You look at Michigan again. They've had games where they've been closer than they should have been. Penn State, they only beat them by 4 points. They only beat Nebraska by 3. They only beat Rutgers by 7. They only beat, that was bad. I mean, they beat Ohio State, of course, 42-27. Or I said earlier, I think I said Michigan State. Hassan Haskins had a solid game that one. Everyone knows Hassan Haskins, though, obviously, from the Ohio State game. He didn't do that much in the Michigan State game. Got my games mixed up for a quick second. But yeah, no, the Ohio State game was tremendous. Michigan wins that one 42-27. It was all Hassan Haskins in that one. 5 touchdowns in the game, 169 rushing yards. It was the game that put Michigan in the spot. It was the big game, and now they're here. Aiden Hutchinson is the best defensive player in all of college football. He will most likely be the number 1 pick in the draft because, hey, the Detroit Lions are the first seed, or again, the first pick, and you know they're not taking a quarterback, so it's going to be Aiden Hutchinson. I really do believe so for the Michigan Wolverines, which sucks for Hutchinson because that probably means his career is going down the drain, but his college, especially his last season here with Michigan, was special, and he's going to give Georgia some problems. Stetson Bennett's not going to have all that time to throw the football in the pocket that he usually does. Of course, you still got JT Daniels just sitting on the bench for this team. You got Zamir White, James Cook, Kenny McIntosh, as well as the running backs. Of course, Daniels will be transferring, and he'll be in the transfer portal, obviously. But Stetson Bennett is the guy, and we'll see if Stetson Bennett can beat Michigan. Do I think he will? Yes, sir. We're taking Georgia to beat Michigan. I just think that if Georgia can stop the run, which I'm planning that I think that they can do, Georgia's going to win this game all day long. If they can contain Hassan Haskins, they're going to win the game. Hassan Haskins obviously is the pride, and he's the heart of this damn Michigan team. If the Wolverines can't get Haskins going, it's going to be all Georgia all night long. I'm taking the Bulldogs to win the Orange Bowl, and I think we get a rematch of last year. They're matching up with Cincinnati now in the national championship. Now, New Year's Day, we have got the Citrus Bowl. It is the Arkansas Razorbacks taking on the Penn State Nittany Lions. For Penn State, they were 7-5 this season. For Arkansas, they were 8-4. You know what Arkansas brings? They had a very good start to the season. They started 4-0. They had that win over number 7 Texas A&M at 20-10. And then they run into Georgia, they lose. They run to Ole Miss, they lose. They run to Auburn, they lose. They got stuff back on track after winning 3 straight games, the latter 2 being Mississippi State and LSU. They dropped the close game to Alabama, and then of course they beat Missouri to finish 8-4. KJ Jefferson and Treylon Burks leading the charge. Treylon Burks, one of the better receivers in college football. That man had a very good season. For Penn State, obviously, Sean Clifford is still playing very good football. He had that injury in the Iowa game that really hurt Penn State, and then after that, they dropped 2 more. After that, when they were number 2 in the country, they lost to Illinois, then lost to Ohio State. They beat Maryland, lost to Michigan, beat Rutgers, and lost to Michigan State. It's not the spot Penn State wanted to be in just, 6 weeks ago? I mean, a lot of people thought this Penn State team had a chance to win the Big Ten, and now here they are sitting 4th in the East, 7-5 overall. And now they're in New Year's Six Bowl, not New Year's Six Bowl. They're in a New Year's Bowl, not a New Year's Six Bowl though. They're here in the Citrus Bowl, which, it's a good game. Don't get me wrong. Oh yeah, sorry, this is the Outback Bowl. Oh my goodness, I had the graphics on the screen the entire time. It is the Outback Bowl, not the Citrus Bowl. Citrus Bowl is Iowa and Kentucky. I'm recording this at 1 o'clock the night before the Bahamas Bowl. Excuse me, but oh my goodness, it's the Outback Bowl. Yeah, it's not where they wanted to be though. Don't get me wrong, they don't want to be in the Outback Bowl, right? But yeah, Penn State and Arkansas. I'm sure you were yelling out the screen watching this because I had the graphic up for the Outback Bowl the entire time. But Penn State coming to this game, they're minus 2.5 point favorites. For Arkansas coming back at plus 2.5. The odds, you got minus 135 for Penn State. You got plus 110 for Arkansas. Sean Clifford, Jahan Dotson, of course, the 1-2 punch right there at Penn State. They're probably going to beat Arkansas. I think they're going to. I think the passing attack is going to be too much. Penn State, again, they were a very underachieving team this season. They're a very good football team overall. I just don't think Arkansas is going to be able to contain them. Yes, KJ Jefferson is good. Yes, Treylon Burks is very good. And yes, Arkansas has got their 1-2 punch of their own. But still, give me the Nittany Lions to win the Outback Bowl, not the Citrus Bowl. The Citrus Bowl is up next. Okay, here's the Citrus Bowl. It's Kentucky, and of course, it will be Iowa. Big story of this game. Iowa starting running back, and very good running back. And Tyler Goodson not playing in this one. Goodson is going straight to the draft. He will not be playing in this bowl game. He had over 1,100 yards this season. No Goodson in this game, of course, for the Hawkeyes. They still got my guy, the tight end, Sam Laporta. Of course, Iowa, they produce tight ends in this school. Noah Fant, TJ Hawkinson as of late, and now Sam Laporta is the next one up. As far as I know, though, I believe Laporta is playing in this game. For Kentucky, though, their running game's very good as well. Chris Rodriguez had a very good season for the Wildcats, and it was a year where, hey man, Kentucky starts the year, 6-0? They drop the next 3, and then they win the final 3, which is all right. Again, it's going to happen to you. You're going to lose to Georgia. You're going to lose Mississippi State, and you're going to lose a shootout, definitely against Tennessee. But they rebounded. They beat Vanderbilt. Again, that game doesn't count. They beat New Mexico State, and they beat Louisville. My thing is, with Kentucky, they haven't won an SEC game since they beat LSU in week 5, which kind of sucks. But they had the key win, and really their best win of the season was that win over Florida. They beat Florida when Florida was number 10 in the country, 20-13. It brings me back to my point. I don't know how good these SEC schools are, considering Kentucky beat Florida, but then a couple weeks later, they lose to Mississippi State and they lose to Tennessee. For the odds for this one, you got Kentucky at a -2.5 point favorite. I think obviously that line has changed a little bit since the announcement that Goodson is not going to be playing in this one. That was announced about a week ago. So Iowa's best running back obviously not going in this one. I think you look at this, I think Kentucky's the better team now, especially with Iowa missing out on their starting running back. And it's a problem with college football that a lot of star players aren't playing in the bowl games because there's no incentives to play these games when you can just go declare for the NFL draft immediately. But that's besides the point. I think Kentucky's going to win this game. I think they're going to bring home the Citrus Bowl championship. Yeah, give me Kentucky to pick up the win. So Notre Dame misses out on the college football playoffs this season, and now instead they are in the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl, taking on Oklahoma State. Of course, Notre Dame number 5 right now, Oklahoma State number 9. And for Oklahoma State, that disappointing finish really too. The regular season for them, they lose to Baylor, and who knows if they beat Baylor? Do they sneak them in the playoffs over Cincinnati? I doubt it, but Baylor wins that one 21-16. It was like that Rams-Titans Super Bowl. He was 1 yard short of the end zone, and Oklahoma State loses that game, but they had a very good season nonetheless. Again, I don't think a lot of people thought Oklahoma State was going to be in that spot. I don't think a lot of people thought they were going to beat Oklahoma 37-33. All around, man, good season for them. And I know they started the year and they only won by 7 points against Missouri State in their first game, but they kept winning. They beat Tulsa by 5. They beat Boise State by 1. They just kept doing enough to win games. They beat Boise State by 1. They beat Kansas State by 11. They beat Baylor by 10. Texas by 8. They dropped the game into Brock Purdy and the Cyclones, but then they blew out Kansas, which you're supposed to do. They blew out West Virginia. They blew out Texas Christian. They blew out Texas Tech. They beat Oklahoma, and then of course they got that game against Baylor and they lost, but still Spencer Sanders had a very good season for them, and Jalen Warren had a very good year running the football as well, but they're taking on the Fighting Irish. And I've, over the past years, I've been one to say, okay, I don't think Notre Dame's all that good. Is this season a little bit different? I don't know, because they only beat one ranked team, and that was the argument for Notre Dame going into the playoffs. Was okay, well they look good since the Cincinnati loss, but the problem is they lost to Cincinnati at South Bend. It just wasn't a good game at all for Notre Dame. Jack Cohn overall, though, had a very good season. They started the season kind of rough, too. They had to come back to beat Toledo in week 2. And that game, I think, on Monday night against Florida State, where they barely won. I don't know. Of course, the whole coaching situation with Kelly leaving now is weird. He's going to Louisiana State. But still, Kyron Williams had a very good season for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Over 1,000 yards rushing for him. And Jack Cohn, very good season passing the football as well. They finished the season, of course, with wins over Virginia Tech. Since Cincinnati lost, they beat Virginia Tech, beat USC, beat North Carolina, beat Navy, beat UVA, beat Georgia Tech, and of course they beat Stanford in basically a Notre Dame home game in Palo Alto. But it was just a good end of the season for Notre Dame. Of course, not the spot they wanted to be in, but did anyone want to see Notre Dame get blown out by 40 points against Alabama or an SEC school at the end of the season in the playoffs? I sure as hell didn't. I think it's a better game for Notre Dame. I think they can beat Oklahoma State. They don't even got to take on the best team in the Big 12 anymore. That's Baylor. We're gonna talk about them for the Sugar Bowl, but honestly, the better game would have been Notre Dame and Baylor. Obviously, I know the tie-in for the SEC and the Sugar Bowl against the Big 12, that's what you want Ole Miss and Baylor for. But for Notre Dame, man, you couldn't have asked for a better game on New Year's Day. You're getting an Oklahoma State team who's coming off a loss, and I know Oklahoma State's good, but they're not as good as Baylor. Notre Dame can come in this game, and they're gonna beat Oklahoma State. I think they will. You look at the current line for this one. I do believe Notre Dame is the favorites. Currently, you've got a Notre Dame at a 2.5 point favorite. Yeah, I think they're going to win this one. I feel pretty good about it. I think Oklahoma State's a good team, and Notre Dame, of course, always gets into these close games, but still, I like the Fighting Irish to barely edge out a victory here in Arizona and pick up the win. We've got the most iconic bowl game here now in the Rose Bowl. It is Ohio State, and it is Utah. Okay, I know Ohio State lost 42-27 against Michigan, but dude, they're not losing to Utah. I think I picked against the Pac-12 every single game. I don't think Ohio State's losing to Utah. I don't think this game's all that close. I like the fight I've seen out of this Utah team. I like the story at the end of the season. I think Cameron Rising's a good quarterback. I think Tavion Thomas had a good season running the football as well. But man, do I think they stand a chance against Ohio State? I don't think they do. I know we might be down them because of the Michigan game, but dude, look how well they were playing before they lost that one. Like after the Oregon game, something switched with this team. A flip was switched, and that offense just kept going crazy, and the defense kept doing what they needed to do. Look, they put up 56 points against Michigan State. They put, what, I think it was 49 in the first half. They blow out Purdue. They blow out Nebraska. Actually, the Nebraska game was closer than it should have been. They beat Penn State. They blow out Iowa. Indiana. They blow out Maryland. They beat Rutgers. You're supposed to do that. And they blew out. Did they play Akron this season? They did play Akron. Yeah. Yeah, okay, Utah's not horrible. They're not bad. They're a 3-loss team who lost to Oregon State, lost to San Diego State, and lost to BYU. CJ Stroud's going to have a field day throwing the football against Utah. I think he's going to. Because what Ohio State does, they do everything that Oregon does, but just so much better. I know that's weird considering, yeah, Oregon beat them at the beginning of the season, and yeah, Oregon looked very good at the beginning of the year, but CJ Stroud in this offense has turned it around. Travion Henderson's one of the better running backs in college football. You got Chris Olave, who's back. He came back for his last season, obviously here. Jeremy Ruckert's a solid tight end. Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith's very good as well. Ohio State's going to be Utah. I don't think this one's going to be all that close. You look at the current line for this one. Obviously, Ohio State is the favorites in this one. They're -6.5. Hammer that line. They are not losing to Utah. They're not losing this game. And I'm a big Pac-12 fan. I consider myself a Pac-12 fan. But damn, I think I picked against them every single game in bowl season because the Pac-12 is not very good. They're only in 6 bowl games too. I'm picking Ohio State. I don't think this game's all that competitive. I think CJ Stroud is going to have a very good game. Maybe showing why he should have been the Heisman. He definitely shouldn't have been, but still, he's the third best quarterback in college football this season for a reason, but that's not a bad thing. He was a good quarterback this year, was Stroud, but again, I like Ohio State to beat Utah. I don't think this one's all that close. We're going with the Buckeyes to pick up the win here in the Rose Bowl. So our final game here on New Year's Day, it of course will be the Sugar Bowl. It is Baylor versus Ole Miss. And who is starting at quarterback for Baylor this game? Is it Gary Bohannon or is it going to be Blake Shapen? Because of course Bohannon got hurt midway through the year and they went to Shapen and he played some pretty good football. Of course, won the Big 12 championship game, didn't have the most impressive games, but still did enough to get the win when they beat Oklahoma State, when they beat Texas Tech, and when they beat Kansas State as well. So I don't know, is Bohannon getting the start? I don't know. I know he's still hurt. It's just interesting. I really don't know who's going to be making the start. They're taking on Ole Miss, who's got one of the better quarterbacks in the game, obviously, Matt Corral. That man's a monster. He's got a very good arm, and he's very good at football. I mean, that's simple. He's going to be one of the top quarterbacks coming out in the draft. Of course, you got him, you got Pickett, you got Ritter, you got all these guys coming in the draft. But Corral's one of those guys, man. Baylor coming to this game is a -1. They're 1-point favorites, obviously, coming in this game. It's basically pick 'em. It's basically a pick 'em game here, and I get it because the Ole Miss Rebels are a very good football team. They ran into 2 losses this season. They had that one game at Tuscaloosa, which they lost. No shame in that, and they lost at Auburn as well. But other than that, this Ole Miss offense has been very good. Again, Corral, one of the better quarterbacks in football. Jerrion Ely had a solid year running the football when they needed him to do so. Obviously, Ole Miss doesn't run the ball that much, but for Baylor, of course, is Abram Smith, who is their star running back, about 1,400 rushing yards this season, 12 tutties for him. They rely on him to get the offense going. If they're going to beat Ole Miss, they're going to need Smith to really get going. And against Ole Miss, again, you know what Ole Miss is going to do. They're going to throw the football a lot. You know what Baylor's going to do. They're going to rely on their running game, and when they need him, either Bohannon or Shapen, who knows who's going to get the start, but when they need him to make plays, they can make plays in the play action game and all that. But still, they're going to rely on Abram Smith to make the plays through the running game, and their line for Baylor is very good too. I think this game's going to be close. I like this game closing out the slate here on January 1st. Of course, in the Sugar Bowl. Should be a very competitive one. Ever so slightly, though, I'm taking the Big 12 champs. I really liked what I saw at Baylor in the Big 12 championship game. Showed a lot of heart in that game at beating Oklahoma State, winning that game at the very last second, stopping them at the 1-yard line, and even the week before, barely beating Texas Tech by 3 points, even though you don't want a game against Texas Tech to be all that competitive, but still, it was a good way to crawl out of that game with a victory. I think Baylor's going to edge out this victory here over Ole Miss. I think it'll be a very close game. I think it'll be a high-scoring affair for the most part. I think it should be. Of course, Big 12 team taking on a very high explosive Ole Miss offense. Yeah, give me Baylor, though, to barely win this one. I think, again, it's pick 'em odds for a reason, but we're going to take the Baylor Bears to win this one to close out January 1st. And why does this game exist? I don't know. And why it's on January 4th, I don't know either. We've got LSU taking on Kansas State. Cool. Like 2 underachieving teams this season, 2 teams like, all right, your plan. I don't know if anyone's going to watch this football game. Kansas State's coming to this one 7-5. I mean, sure, they started 7-3, but they lost to Baylor and Texas to close out the year. Yeah, they lost to Texas. Ugh, they're taking on Louisiana State, which is another kind of disappointing year for LSU. Of course, it all started with that loss to UCLA. But man, I don't know what to expect of this one. It's a game that's after New Year's. I don't know why we're still playing football. Remember when the GoDaddy Bowl was after New Year's and it was just weird because it was like a MAC team versus, I think, was it a Sunbelt squad, and no one really watched it. I mean, I think more people watch this game obviously because it, of course, is Louisiana State. But LSU coming to this one with a record of 6-6. Just another one of these teams at the SEC. How good are they? I don't know. They finished up the year barely edging out Texas A&M 27-24, becoming bowl eligible. They beat Zach Calzada and the Aggies in a very close contested ball game. But of course, LSU now bowl eligible and in this spot. And the week before, they barely snuck out a victory. Only a 13-point win over UL Monroe. Of course, they won that one. Here are the LSU Tigers now, of course, trying to beat Kansas State. Max Johnson leading the charge for them. They got Tryon Davis Price as well at running back for LSU. Kansas State started off the season beating Stanford 7-5. Skylar Thompson, their quarterback. Deuce Vaughn, of course, their running back as well. Should be a close game. Give me Kansas State, though. I'm not all that impressed with LSU, especially down the stretch. I know they barely won against A&M. They're just one of these SEC schools that have so many question marks around them. I like Kansas State to pick up the win here in the Tax Act Texas Bowl. So yeah, give me the Wildcats to pick up the win here against Texas. All right, it is time for the Natty. I've got Cincinnati and Georgia, and it's 3 versus 4. We got the two technically underdogs coming into this one winning. I know Georgia is favored over Michigan, of course, in the Orange Bowl. We've got the two teams that are the lower seeded squads coming into this game. It is the rematch of the Peach Bowl last season where Georgia barely edged out a victory against Cincinnati, and Cincy played a good game in that one, but just couldn't win it. So Georgia and Cincinnati, again, this could be completely wrong, and I can definitely see a world where it's Michigan versus Alabama, or even Michigan versus Cincinnati, or even Georgia versus Alabama, probably the most likely scenario. But hey, I took a shot in Cincinnati. Can Cincinnati win twice against two SEC schools in back-to-back weeks? That's the question. Can they do it? I don't know, because Georgia's very good. And I think Georgia was just put in the best position possible. And obviously, with Cincinnati, in my world, upsetting Alabama, it puts Georgia in the perfect spot to take advantage of what Alabama did not do and perfect that game plan and beat Cincinnati a second time 2 years in a row. I love the story in Cincinnati, but if they truly actually do get to the spot, do they beat Georgia? Probably not. I think Georgia's a nightmare matchup for Cincinnati more than what Alabama is, because Georgia brings the defense better than Alabama does. If Cincinnati can't get going on offense, you're going to see probably a low-scoring affair, but Georgia's probably going to score more on the Cincinnati defense than what Cincinnati can do against a Georgia defense that is very good. And depending on if Georgia can shut down the run game that Hassan Haskins will bring from Michigan, if they can shut down Haskins and that O-line from Michigan, they can shut down the O-line of Cincinnati, and of course what Jerome Ford's going to bring. Desmond Ridder, again, can make the plays when they need him to. He's a very good quarterback who's going to be one of the top 5 picked in the draft, but all around, man, I hate picking against my guys in the Bearcats, but I think Georgia's going to win. Oh, I think they're going to, yeah. And again, it's just the perfect scenario for Georgia. Again, in this world, with Cincinnati upsetting Alabama, it's what Georgia 100% wants. If Georgia can have it anyway, they beat Michigan and they get Cincinnati in the playoffs or in the final, because you know damn well they don't want to play Alabama again. If they play Alabama again, I'll give you my prediction on every single potential bowl game or final. I think Alabama beats Georgia. I think if it's Alabama Georgia, I got Alabama. If it's Georgia Cincinnati, I've got Georgia. If it's Cincinnati Michigan, believe it or not, I think Cincinnati can actually win that game. If it's Michigan versus Alabama, give me Michigan too, or give me Alabama, excuse me. So I didn't think I laid out a possibility for Michigan to win this damn thing, but how I think it is. I think Cincinnati's better than Michigan. I just truly think they are. Even though Michigan blew out Iowa, and that was a tremendous game, don't get me wrong, but I just think Cincinnati's better than them. I think Cincinnati's number 3. I think they are. And I think they definitely got a shot to beat Georgia. It's just matchup-wise, though, you look at Georgia and you look at Cincinnati, I think you see somewhat of a repeat of last year. Again, Azeez Ojulari is not on this Georgia team anymore. Obviously, he's on the New York Football Giants, and he had a tremendous game in the Peach Bowl last year, but still, I like Georgia to beat Cincinnati. It pains me because, again, I'm a big Cincinnati guy. I've been supporting the Bearcats all season long, but in this specific matchup, in this specific scenario, I'm taking the Georgia Bulldogs to win the national championship. Will they actually get it done? Because so many years it's been Georgia's at the mountaintop. Can they finally climb it and get to the top? We'll see. I think this season, though, it is the year of the Bulldogs. Give me Georgia, but if Alabama beats Cincinnati, which is entirely possible, 100%, forget I ever said this, Alabama's beating Georgia 100%. There, I said it. So, but in this one, we're taking Georgia to beat Cincinnati. And folks, that will do it here for this over 90-minute long college football bowl game predictions. I don't know how many of y'all are gonna watch this video. If you got this far, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, hey, I watch a lot of college football. I thought, hey, let's go make this one. It's gonna make this video. It's gonna make it a lot more interesting for me, especially watching the bowl games now, considering I made this video and watching all my predictions again. But yeah, I thought it was gonna be a lot of fun, so I did it. And I think we're gonna have a New York Football Giants video out later tonight as well. I think everything goes to plan. This video is coming out at 9 o'clock in the morning, just as the Bahamas Bowl is starting. So hey, if you see it now, have fun watching the Bahamas Bowl. And again, folks, thank you for watching. Have fun watching this entire bowl season too. A lot of good games here with this bowl schedule. So folks, thank y'all for watching. Make sure that subscribe button down below. We'll probably do an NFL prediction video out coming for the playoffs. Probably pick the Buccaneers, but still like I did last year. But I don't know. We'll probably do that later on this year or going into 2022. And of course, we do UFC predictions as well. If you're interested in UFC this weekend, we've got Chris Dawkins and Derek Lewis, the main event this week. We've got that entire full card breakdown on the channel as well. So again, folks, thank you for watching. Make sure that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy. And Mamba forever.